Well, hi there, and welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. I'm Debbie Georgiani with Jerry Usher, and hopefully you. This is a live call-in show. We'd like your participation, please. We count on the Take Two family because we're asking the great question, what other decade do you wish you had grown up in? Oh, we got a lot to share about this one, Jerry.
Well, we do, yeah. I mean, if there's one particular, maybe you did grow up in all of those decades, because some of us are old enough to have gotten a little taste of all of them. But if you could look back and choose any one particular decade and say, you know, I really wish I could have grown up during that decade, maybe you did. And if you didn't, we'd certainly love to have you weigh in on this as well. And if you did, why was that such a great decade for you personally? What do you kind of reminisce about it? 833-288 EWTN, 833-288-3986.
That is the question we're asking today. I think it's a good question to ponder because, there were times that, those decades that just seemed so much more simpler and wholesome. I would say what comes to mind, now maybe people will disagree with me, is the 1950s. The 50s, I think, maybe it's the TV shows. I don't know. I just think when women were women and men were men, and there was this just beautiful politeness and just a real dignity and respect that you saw on TV anyway. I don't know. If I didn't grow up in the 50s, I was born in 1965, but I always hear about that. I watch the stories, the movies, the old black and white movies, Jerry. Doesn't get any better than that.
Well, it's funny, yeah, you kind of anticipated me. I was going to say the 1950s also, and I was also going to say because of the way they were presented on TV in many ways, Happy Days and, Laverne and Shirley and some of the sitcoms and other TV shows and movies and things like that.
I Love Lucy.
Yeah, it seems like it would have been, and I just missed the 50s by a few years, not that many. So, yeah, I probably would have picked the 50s. Also, I love the 70s, actually, my high school years. Those were great as well, and lots of great memories of that. So I would say for me, probably the 50s and the 70s are the two decades in my life that I would have either liked to have been in a part of, 1950s, or I'm glad that I was a part of in the 1970s.
Yeah. I really didn't enter into the disco era. I didn't care for it at all. Kind of the big, fluffy hair and the bell bottom, I didn't like, well, the bell bottoms are back, I will tell you. But you know what I'm trying to, I wasn't a big disco. Were you a big disco person?
I'm probably embarrassed to admit it, but I did get into it a little bit. I think there was no avoiding it, to be honest. I think nobody could totally avoid it, but I kind of look back now and I say, I don't think I'd go for that if it came back.
Yeah, it is starting to come. People have disco parties. That's the big thing right now. Yeah. The retro parties. Maybe you did that. Maybe you had a retro party for a birthday or a special event. Can you share that with us? I know the Roaring 20s and stuff like that, and those kinds of great events. There was a few fundraisers I attended that you got dressed up in that era. So that was really cool. Would you share with us what decade that you wished you had grown up in? We'd like to hear from you. Why does this relate to our current, our current state of where we're at in our spirituality? It does. You'll see, because if you're thinking of that certain decade, you're probably thinking of when it was a better time. And let's face it, we're not in the best of times right now. So let's really talk about it. And maybe we could kind of get back to that a little bit. How's that? What a great idea. 833-288-3986.
And young people, millennials, we invite you to call in because you may have heard or seen or read or watched on TV, how things were in a decade prior to before you were born. And you kind of look a little bit nostalgic at that and say, gee, it would have been kind of nice to have been a part of that. 833-288-3986. And again, since most of us, the majority of us, probably have lived in part or all of the last 50 or 60 years, maybe there's a decade that was especially good to you and good for you, and you look back now, maybe it was just recently, maybe it's this decade that we're in right now, maybe it was the 1980s, maybe 1990s. just let us know if there was a decade in recent memory that was particularly a blessing to you in your life, and you maybe wouldn't mind going through it again, make it even better. 833-288 EWTN, 833-288-3986.
We do count on the Take Two family. So if you're listening, if you hear the sound of our voices, we consider you part of the Take Two family. You don't have to be Catholic to call in. Maybe you just kind of tripped onto the station and the show and you're thinking, what's going on? What are they talking about? Well, we're a live call-in show, a safe platform for all of us to come together and share our lived experiences, our wisdom, our knowledge, our understanding of things, so we can all get a little bit smarter, right? As of today, and a little bit closer to God, hopefully. So here's the number to dial. You'll speak to Matt Gabinski. He's just delightful to talk to. And then he'll chat with you for a few minutes. You'll get to listen live, and then you'll slip right into the discussion, just like we're having that discussion in your living room. So just think of it like a virtual living room, where we're just sitting around, shooting the breeze, changing the world with our conversations. Here's the number. Get ready. Start dialing. 833-288-3986.
Well, we all have important events that have occurred to us in our lives, and maybe there was an event or a series of events during a particular decade, last decade, going back to, we could go back to the 1920s with some people who are listening right now, perhaps, or at least definitely the 30s. But if there was an event that happened to you and really was impactful, share that, and how important that was, and how meaningful it is for you that it took place when it did. Maybe you were raising your kids during a particular decade, and it was better, as Debbie said earlier on the show, maybe a more innocent time, maybe a more peaceful time, maybe morals were stronger. So if there was a time when you were, say, raising your own kids and you would like to weigh in on that as well, you are welcome to do so. We have calls being screened right now by Matt Gabinski, and Jeff Burson is on social media. Our producer today is Ace McKay, and Matt looks forward to talking with you and getting you up on the board here at 833-288-3986.
Okay, we're waiting for you, so think about it for just a moment and then call in and share with the world what decade that you wish you had grown up in. We'd love to hear from you. We love the details about the Take Two family at 833-288-3986.
EWTN Radio remembers Father Benedict Groeschel on the 90th anniversary of his birth, all day Sunday on EWTN Radio.
Hi, I'm Doug Keck. This is a bookmark brief, speaking with Peter and Deborah Herbeck about their book, Lessons from the School of Love, Cultivating a Christ-Centered Marriage, published by Emmaus Road, available through our catalog. Deborah, whose idea was it to put this book together, and why did you decide to do it?
Well, we were approached by the publisher and we discussed it. Marriage and family is under attack today. Young people, even people that have been married for a while, just need a lot of reinforcement for how to really make a difference, not only in their own families, but in the world and in the church today. So we just wanted to share from our own experience.
God's grace is enough for anybody to live the life that He's actually called us to live in marriage. He will meet Him there, we'll experience His grace there, and the point of the book is to be transparent and honest about how God worked in the midst of our trials and difficulties and did something beautiful.
It's called Lessons from the School of Love, Cultivating a Christ-Centered Marriage by Peter and Deborah Herbeck. This has been an EWTN Bookmark Brief. We appreciate you stopping by.
This is Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly White House correspondent.
This is Raymond Arroyo, host of The World Over.
Get trusted Catholic news every day on EWTN radio and television.
Well, this is your show. It's Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you. You always make it a great, impactful conversation, and we know you're going to do that today as well. We'll get to your calls momentarily here. 833-288-3986. Is there one particular decade that you did grow up in, or maybe was part of your life at some point along the way? and you would like to just maybe give a shout out for that decade, or maybe there was a decade or a time, a year in particular that you did not grow up in, but you wish you could. We've talked on the show already about events that have happened, maybe raising your own kids during certain time periods. Do you wish you were part of a particular TV family? What about the music of a particular era? 833-288-3986. And, you can carry EWTN with you everywhere when you download the free EWTN app. You can enjoy EWTN live TV and radio streams, audio and video on demand, EWTN news, program schedules, prayers, and devotionals. Just download the EWTN app at EWTNapps.com.
We were just talking with Ace McKay, our producer, and we were talking about how, wouldn't it have been cool during, during Elvis's time, the late 50s, early 60s, and then Ace brought up the Beatles. You have all these really incredible artists, musical artists that really changed a lot of the world, right? That would have been cool to grow up during. Do you remember any of that? Because I was right on the cusp of when you were being born.
Well, I do, yeah, because, music was such a big part of my life since I got into radio to be originally to be a disc jockey. So, yeah, I think the 70s, I love the 70s music,
Like the Bee Gees?
Eagles,
Is that the Bee Gees?
Yeah, the Bee Gees I like the Bee Gees.
Yeah.
But like Eagles and Chicago and Boston and Aerosmith.
Wow. I liked Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young when it was Young was with them. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
That
sure.
was the beginning. Okay, should we hear what, you know what? You can join us. Please join the conversation. We've got a lot to share today. We need you. 833-288-3986. Let's go to Florida and hear what Lisa has to say. She's on Sirius XM 130. That's the way she's listening. First time caller. Hi, Lisa. Welcome to Take Two.
Hi, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. I thought it was a really interesting topic of conversation because I grew up in the 80s and early 90s, I guess. And my mom and dad always talked about, the 50s and how great they were. And so I always watched those shows on UTV. And, oh, my goodness, I just wish my daughter was growing up in that. She's 8 now. And I just think, oh, my Lord, all the stuff I have to constantly make sure she doesn't watch or filter.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Lisa, because when you think about it, how fast we are literally just hurtling toward demise and destruction. It's like, even in the last year, the last 3 years, the last 5 years, the morals have just declined so very, very rapidly. I mean, we really can, like you said, Lisa, look back at a time like the 50s. Let's face it, it's not that there wasn't any immorality or sin or anything like that going on, but it was definitely a simpler time, and I would say a more wholesome time as well. Debbie, I don't know if you got thoughts on that.
I totally agree. And Lisa, the thing that I loved about those older shows those old shows are still coming back. Kids are watching them. That's why they have the cable lineup for that. It's not just for us, older adults that are wanting to go back and reminisce. It's the younger kids are really loving the retro stuff. We can see that in their music, even with like Michael Bublé and others. They're singing the older songs, the Dean Martin songs, the Frank Sinatra songs. Why is that? Because I think there is a hunger for a wholesomeness. There is a desire to have things be very, beautiful, not so complicated. I think this world has become very complicated. Although we have technology that it's supposed to make our lives, faster and more efficient and easier and simplify things. It's actually made it complicated in so many ways because we've stopped using our beautiful imagination and we rely on all these gadgets to fill us with all the necessary information. How do you feel about that, Lisa? Because I feel like as I get older, every single really month as I age, I want to go back to a real simple time. Do you ever feel that?
I do, and I'm trying to teach my daughter the same thing. We just finished building a house, and so we swim a lot in the pool, and I just think about her friends who want to play on their little tablets, and I think, no, play in the pool, play outside, let's go to the park, because that's how I grew up, at least where, the part of in the north where we grew up, and things were safe and we would pick blueberries and just do fun things as kids with my brothers. And I want her to have that. And it is beautiful. And I just want that for her. So that's why I was thinking, oh, the 50s sound so nice.
Yeah, well, you can kind of create your own 1950s in a sense in terms of the things that you're referring to. You know, the healthy environment for your family and the wholesomeness and the innocence too. I mean, we really had innocence. You know, it was so scandalous. You know, even when I was in high school in the 1970s, if someone went into the boys' room and smoked a cigarette, you know, that was like, oh my, you know. Now it's like. They take guns into schools and things like that. So, anything else, Lisa, before we let you go?
Sure. One thing. You know, I am doing that with my daughter. For instance, when we went to Disney and we saw I'm going to go there, so forgive me if I do this, but we saw two grown men holding hands, and she asked me if, you know, that was okay. And I said, well, typically, you know, boys can hold hands if they're friends, but that's the only reason they should be holding hands. And I'm teaching her a man should love a woman and a man should marry a wife. And that's how she's going to grow up. So she's going to grow up in the same world I did. And, you know, we're just going to be innocent and be true to God's word in the Bible.
I loved how you said that, Lisa. Be true to God's word in the Bible. I love that. You sound like a great mom. I think it's wonderful to have those experiences with your child. You know, they should have that time to just be innocent and use their imagination. I love it. So thanks, Lisa. Thanks for weighing in. Call us again sometime.
I'm just smiling because I remember our mother telling us so many times, get out of the house. Just get out of the house. Go do something.
That's because there were so many of you boys. That's why she was probably saying, leave. Just leave the house so I can clean the house.
we would catch snakes and frogs and build tree houses and go just deep out into the woods and hope we found our way out before it got dark. And anybody else? Take Two family? Anybody else?
You mean you were a normal boy. That's what you're trying to say.
You know, the decade that you grew up in. What was special about it? What helped it make you the person that you are today? You know, and if there was a decade that if you don't go back all the way, but you look back at maybe the 1940s, you know, they talk about the greatest generation and the 20s, and if there was a decade that you wish you had grown up in, or tell us about one that you did. 833-288-3986.
Can I share a little secret with you publicly?
Sure.
Okay. So you were talking about your mom saying to you kids, you know, go out of the house, get out of the house. I used to say that to my boys as well, you know, and they would ride their bikes all around the neighborhood. And I used to love when I would get a call from one of the neighbors saying, your son's over here and it's dinner time. He's just going to stay. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Can you take the other one too?
Yeah, right.
I used to love that when they would do that. Then you didn't have to cook dinner.
There you go.
Oh,
all right, 833-288-3986. Please feel free to join us. 833-288-3986. We went from a first-time caller. Now we have a first-time listener, Ulysses in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, listening on WSFI. Hi, Ulysses. Welcome.
Hey, wow. How are you?
Great. So glad you tuned in today, just at the right time.
Thank you. Yes, it was a very spontaneous moment, and wow, very thought-provoking question.
Good. So what would you like to say about it?
Well, I'd say, yes, I've had some wonderful years myself, you know. I'm product of the 50s, okay? 1952 to be exact.
Wow.
But when you pose the question of when would I like to be born, wow, that kind of set me back for a second, you know. Really, actually, I guess it set me forward because in answering your question, I think I would pick the year 2085.
Okay.
Yeah, a future date. You know, I mean, I'm a Black American, okay, born and raised in New Orleans, residing in Milwaukee at present. And, you know, although my childhood, I've got such very great, memorable experiences with my friends, family, you know. Like one guy says, hunting, camping, the swamps of Louisiana. Wow, that was the big difference from the hardwoods of the North, okay? You know, you might not make it out of the swamps of Louisiana as a bunch of kids. You know, yes. Matter of fact, once I stood over a coral snake right between my legs without knowing it. The guy had to shoot it. You know, he said, "Don't move, okay?" But in more about the question, yes, 2085. I would like to see how we, as a nation, as a world, have adjusted to our issues.
Wow.
Our issues on, pardon?
Mm-hmm. I said, wow, that is brilliant. Go ahead, please, sir.
Yes, our issues on economy, race, all these very delicate matters that we face in the world. Yes, I would like to think that, I could sit back someday. Geez, this is going to make me tear up. You know, I could sit back someday and say, wow, we've come a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. Ulysses, I have to tell you, you are such an amazing optimist. I love that. You're a forward thinker. You know, it's interesting. You actually brought a whole new perspective to this conversation because it is easy to look backwards, right? And to pick out the things that we think it could be like again, it should have been like, and stuff like that. But you're going forward and you want improvements, you want to see advancements, you want to see how people grow. I love that. That's really where God is more at, because he doesn't want us to always reflect. I mean, to reflect and appreciate, yes, but to reflect and to stay in that place in the past, that's not always necessarily a good thing for our growth. But what you're saying is go forward and really, make a difference and grow. I love that. Thank you so much. That was huge. Jerry and I are both life coaches, so that is music to our ears.
If you don't mind, let me interject that, yes, I guess that my statement, I feel may be impactful to some of your audience as to reflect that, wow, it wasn't so peaceful for some of us. It wasn't so great for some. I mean, although, we laughed and played and all, the sword of Damocles always was over our head and remains so. So, yes, the audience, I'm glad for those who prospered, both spiritually and others. But reflection, yes, it maybe bring out a little more compassion for, yes, a dream. People dreaming about when they could maybe have prospered better in the past, this, that, the other. But for everyone, it wasn't so. And their reflection can maybe make it so in the future.
Well, Ulysses, you know what? You're really pointing to an important fact here, I think, and that is we talked earlier about perception, and the ways, for example, to take the 50s again, because we were talking about that. The way that the 50s were presented to us, was like I said, the Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley. What was the name? Leave It to Beaver, I think was the 50s or the 60s. And so, things can be presented to us in a certain way. And perhaps, I may be guilty right now myself of thinking, wow, then, overall it was kind of like that. But you said your own experience was in some ways different from that. And I agree with what Debbie said, looking forward, being, forward thinking, forward looking, being hopeful because you mentioned some things that are going on right now, the economic difficulties, the race tensions and all of that. And I think you were alluding to a time when you'd like to think we'll be beyond those things. And I hope and pray that, history will look back and say, how could people have lived the way that they did in some ways, with some of the things that we're going through right now. So. Anyway, any final comment, Ulysses, before we let you go?
Oh, yeah. Love Leave It to Beaver. Still watch Andy and Mayberry, okay? I kind of lost a thought there. Wow. Thanks for letting me express, okay?
Absolutely. Well, you were a first-time listener, but that's not going to be that way anymore. So we hope you stay in touch with us, continue to listen, and call us again. Will you do that, sir?
Hey, yeah, I think I could, because I've been, it's really something that I tuned to your station just now, because I have been trying to increase my spirituality.
Cool. Very nice. Very nice. Well, You're part of the Take Two family, so thank you. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Wow, that was a great call.
833-288-3986. Don't be bashful. It's your platform here. Talking today about a decade that you did grow up in, that you felt was good, bad, indifferent, or if there was a decade you wish you had grown up in. 833, or a year for that matter, 833-288-3986. Come on.
Hi, I'm Johnette Williams, inviting you to Birmingham for the free EWTN Family Celebration. It's Saturday, August 26th. Enjoy talks from your favorite EWTN radio and TV hosts, including me. You can shop at EWTN's religious catalog, attend Holy Mass, and be part of a televised show. There's even a Eucharistic procession through the streets of Birmingham. Go to EWTN.com/family celebration to find out more and to register. I look forward to seeing you there.
This is Life Issues with Brad Mattis, president of Life Issues Institute.
Tatum Kelly and Leighton Long were born very prematurely in Tennessee and spent the first months of their lives in TriStar Centennial's NICU during 2005. The parents of these babies, just 2 beds away from each other, bonded and kept in touch over the years. The 2 now healthy kids did too. When they got their first flip phones, Tatum and Leighton texted one another. Tatum said, "We're just really good friends, so I asked him to come to my prom." Leighton showed up in a limo, and the 2 had a great time. Jamie Horton, a nurse who took care of them and still works at the NICU, was especially excited. She said, "There's not always a happy ending." This story just had one more magical stop on their journey through life.
For more information, visit our website at lifeissues.org and stay informed, more informed than you've ever been.
This is Jerry Usher. If you missed part of today's show, catch the encore tonight at midnight Eastern or anytime at EWTN Podcast Central. Visit us at EWTN.com/radio/podcasts.
Hi, this is Johnette Williams. You don't have to be a woman to enjoy Women of Grace tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern here on EWTN Radio. Now, back to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
What a great discussion we're having today about the decade that really stands out for you. Great insights and ideas here. So we want you to continue on social media. Jeff Burson is monitoring social media. Ace is at the controls, and Matt Kabinski's answering your calls. So Jerry, if it's okay with you, let's go to Chris. And Chris is in Illinois, listening on the EWTN app. Hi, Chris.
Hello. I just wanted to share a little bit. I was born in the mid-50s, grew up in the 50s and 60s, and had a wonderful childhood. Majority of it was outside playing, but, you know, my mom was home, and if my mom wasn't home, my neighbor's mom was home. We all played together, and it was safe for us to run the neighborhoods and ride our bikes to the Dairy Queen and play dodgeball after dark. But, you know, that's not the same for a lot of children growing up now. And I don't know how we can rectify that. I'm blessed that my grandchildren live in a community that they can do that. But it's a rare situation for kids to have that kind of freedom anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Chris, I think there's a lot of factors that go into this. we could probably sit here and list a lot of them, many of the societal ills that are plaguing us right now. But I think some of the major ones, of course, are the breakdown of the family. It sounds like hopefully you did have a very, good family environment and all of that. But, the breakdown of the family is just such a crucial part of what we're experiencing right now, the absence of fathers. What's presented to our young people in particular, I think, especially on media and, social media, and the things that they just put into their minds and their ears and their eyes and their hearts, so... Yeah, it really is a different. It is a different world, and it's a blessing for any families who are able to kind of, build around themselves. I don't want to say this bubble or anything. You don't want to be, isolated completely from the world, but you really have to be protective nowadays, Debbie. I think anyway.
I agree, but wouldn't you also say, Chris and Jerry, that we can create certain very controlled, protected events and environments for our kids and our grandkids? We're not going to be able to do that all the time, but like if there was I guess an event we're having in our backyard or something of that nature, there are things we can do so we can create that environment for our children and grandchildren so they can experience just being kids. That's really where my come from is, Chris, is that I just feel like so many of them are growing up so fast, and they're missing out on all the really cool, simple things that we enjoyed that really just expanded our imagination and just let us just be kids and not look at the clock and just let time go and enjoy nature. And so I think we just have to get more creative when it comes to our kids and grandkids. What do you say, Chris?
I think you're right. There's a lot of people growing up that don't have yards, or if they have a yard, it's not very big, and if they're in the neighborhood, they have fences up. Yep. So I think really as a community, as neighborhoods, we need to reach out and make occasions for these children to find safe ways to have fun instead of staying in the house where they're protected. Right. So that it's just a different environment. We have to think of different ways to make kids.
Yeah, and we really have to take our hats off and give thanks to God for the men and women who are recognizing this, like you, Chris, and especially in some of the neighborhoods and cities and places where kids just don't have the family structure or whatever. There are a lot of men and women who have maybe hit bottom, and because of that they've bounced back, and they are now devoting their lives to really helping kids, especially young kids, to get what they didn't have growing up. So a lot of wonderful people out there trying to make a difference.
Yep. Thanks, Chris. Thank you so much for weighing in on this. Okay. Beautiful call. We have great calls today. We always have great calls. I love the Take Two family. I mean, look at them go. They're just filling up every single phone line plus. 833-288-3986.
Okay, Miguel is next in Georgia listening on The Quest. Hi, Miguel. Thanks for taking time to call us today.
Hi. I had a cousin, and his name was Darren, and he's not really with us no more, unfortunately, and I really miss him. But so he had a lot of friends, and they were really happy around, they met, probably in, 08 or 09, but they're really close, and around maybe 2012 and 13, and I was, a little kid at that time. But I wish I was older, and because they had so much fun, and I wish I could be at that time, because then I would be with him, and he seemed really happy, and it would have tripled my memories with him, and he was always my favorite cousin, and we were pretty close, and I just miss him,
Yeah. Wow, Miguel, it sounds like Darren had quite an impact on you. Do you have any, really in particular, any special qualities about Darren, or what was it that made him so much attractive that you would wish you'd been around him more?
Well, he was awesome. He was really kind and stuff, and he helped me especially with my school a lot. And he loved the guitar, and he taught theology of the body, and that now that I'm older, it was really useful to me, and I just wish I could be with him.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like he left us too soon, right, Miguel?
So it was in 2019, October 25th. It was too soon. He was only 17.
Oh, wow. That's way too young. And so you're a teenager yourself, correct?
Yes, I'm only 13.
Oh, wow. You're only 13? You sound like you're about 18, 19 on the radio. That's awesome. So Miguel, would there's such a thing as sometimes people say that, you're kind of an old soul. Has anyone ever said that to you? You're an old soul, like you have like this wisdom that's beyond your years. You have a grasp of things that, that those are gifts from God. Has anyone ever told you that you have an understanding and an insight that is beyond 13 years?
Well, no one's really ever told me that. My mom says I'm really kind and stuff, but no one's ever told me that.
Well, you demonstrate that in your words. And Miguel, I just wanted to say the beauty of you is that you have remembered, and you have those memories of your cousin, and that's a beautiful thing. And are you Catholic, Miguel?
Yes.
Okay. So when you receive communion, you are very close to your cousin, very close. It sounds like he was an incredible spiritual young man. Okay, so you're very, very close, and we are united in so many ways spiritually and as the body of Christ, and sometimes we don't tap into that enough. And so, Miguel, I just would encourage you to really put your mind towards that and think of your cousin. Always remember your cousin if you can in prayer, because every soul that has left us, we should remember them so that they to be sure to get to heaven. And it's a beautiful thing. But Miguel, you have the memories, the strong memories, and then you get to create more of that legacy. And I think that's wonderful. And that's what your cousin would want for you, is for you to continue on and just continue what he planted in those wonderful seeds in you, because obviously he made an impact. And that's a great thing, because a lot of family members don't feel that way about other family members, but you do about your cousin. So God bless you, sweetheart. You are a kind, beautiful soul.
Thank you. You guys are awesome.
Oh, God bless you, Miguel. Thank you very much. And we've added, I'm sure you've already added Darren, his cousin Darren, to the prayer book. I added
Darren to the prayer book. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very good. Okay, we were talking today about a decade that you wish you had been a part of, had grown up in, maybe you were a part of or grew up in, and it was just, memorable to you you fill in the blank, 833-288-3986. Pat is in Cleveland. Our affiliate there is The Rock. Hello, Pat. Thank you for waiting and welcome.
Hi, Jerry. Hi, Debbie.
Hey.
When I was listening to Ulysses, he was already saying some things that I was going to be talking about, how every age has its problems, and I think the world is always getting better and worse at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I think racially, I think we're better moving in a direction of more racial justice now than it was in the 1950s. But at the same time, family breakdown is so much worse that in the early 50s, over 90% of African-American kids grew up with both their parents who were married to each other. But now there's more economic opportunity for jobs, education, for people of all races. But like I said, the less people going to church, more people are anxious or depressed. I remember growing up in the 1960s and 70s, and the murder rate was so much higher than it is now. It was a much more dangerous place to live than our cities in the 60s and 70s than it is now. And there were riots, and there's all people. I'll hear young people today say, our country has never been more divided than it is now. Well, they weren't around in 1968 or 1972. The country was way more divided then than it is now. But if you go back to the 1860s, it was way more divided then, where we lost over 500,000 soldiers in the Civil War, let alone the civilians. Yeah. And so we're always getting better and worse at the same time. and we need to be trying to like draw out the strengths and encourage those who are doing the right thing, and try to work for what's good and keep things from getting worse all at once.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting insight, Pat, and I'm glad you shared it, because things are very cyclical, and I think we go through those. Like you said, things get better and worse at the same time. And, I think there are a lot of people who, commit themselves to making the world a better place. I like to believe that there are good people who do bad things, not bad people who do good things. In other words, we're all, through the creation by God, we're created in His image and likeness, and especially, of course, through baptism, we have that divine mark on our soul. But people are generally pretty good, but they get into situations and families and living lives and environments and stuff like that really kind of create a lot of resentment and anger and hatred and division. And we really need to be kind of striving to work against that. And it sounds like you've got a heart to do just that.
Mm-hmm.
Debbie, do you have any thoughts for Pat?
Yeah, I just wanted to say or ask Pat if I can borrow what you just said, because I thought it was brilliant, where you said the world is always getting better and worse at the same time. That is brilliant. That just hit me in such a deep way, and you're spot on, because I remember growing up in that time. I grew up in northern New Jersey, right near some of the bigger cities, and I remember the riots. I remember them as a little kid, and the world is always getting better and worse at the same time. That is brilliant, Pat. Have you said that before? Is this the first time you launched this on publicly?
That's the first time I said it on the radio. I've said it to people before,
Yeah. That's incredible. I love that. No, it's true. That is true. And that does get us to appreciate what we had, and it gets us to strive for something better and to appreciate the present moment, right, Pat?
Yeah, and try to keep our eyes open to read the signs of the time, as Vatican II said. So, well, what is really going on? How can we make it better? But one thing that I think Jerry said was about how you have good people doing bad things, and sometimes it's out of weakness or anger, but sometimes the good people are doing, trying to do things that are really bad, making the culture worse out of good intention. And my daughter right now she's executive director, Right to Life in Northeast Ohio, and there's some ballot initiatives in Ohio right now that are kind of scary in terms of abortion and parental rights and other things. And she has run into people working on the other side who are very committed, thinking they're doing the right thing. And she says they just don't know, but they're good people. But they're doing something that's really evil, but they think they're doing something good. They're trying to help.
Yeah. Yeah, as you were saying that, I think if memory serves me right, in the Bible, early Christian days, many of the anti-Christian, religious people, were killing the first Christians, thinking they were doing something holy and righteous, in the name of God. So, and it's just a matter of education and praying for people, and people. We've seen so many people turn their lives around. You mentioned the whole abortion issue. We got Abby Johnson, a beautiful example of that. Through really just through the love and witness of the people who would be at the abortion clinics, and talking to her, showing her love, not condemnation, not judgment. And people can definitely turn things around and change their lives in big ways.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Pat, thank you so much for sharing today. And would you thank your daughter for the fine work that she's doing?
I certainly will. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Back to more of your calls in a moment. I want to tell you about another show that comes on before ours does in the morning. It's More to Life. More, the number 2, Life, with Dr. Greg and Lisa Popchak, Monday through Friday morning, 10 Eastern Time, right here on many of these same EWTN stations. Dr. Greg and Lisa help listeners navigate the waters of family life with really excellent solutions straight from the genius of Pope John Paul II's theology of the body, which Miguel referenced his cousin Darren was teaching at a young age. Yep. More to Life with Dr. Greg and Lisa Popchak, Monday through Fridays, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, here on EWTN Radio.
They do a great job. Okay, Harold is up next in Ontario, Canada, listening on the Station of the Cross. Hi, Harold. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call. And Yeah, in terms of the topic, really nice conversation there. Really thought it was pretty insightful there about history, I guess, being cyclical and, things that are going right and wrong at the same time. I know it's always a fact. I guess we can say that that we learn from, if we don't learn from history, history tends to repeat itself. When I think about the decades, I think, in terms of growing up, I was born in the 70s, but I come from a family that has seems to have always been fathered around by communism and being persecuted because of our Catholic stance. And when I was only about 9 years old, I actually happened to be living in a country where communist regime with the Sandinistas broke out. But one of the things that I did enjoy, I noticed, was the clarity that the leadership of our church had at the time in combating ideologies and things that were against the gospel. Again, we don't. We just have to be honest. I don't think we have that clarity anymore with our leadership. I also think that that God has a vocation, I think, for our lay people to really stand up and learn the faith ourselves. I think that we are born and live in a time, and we are given the tools necessary, spiritual and otherwise, to be able to combat evil in our time, to be able to build a kingdom. And I think that we have to be honest as lay people that we do have, overall, we do have Catholic leadership that is very weak. And I think we have to start with the truth, and that's what's happening. Whereas places where I've been to, I've worked in missionary activities and so on, Latin America and other places, you get the perspective of that, to know that at one time in history, Catholic leadership was clear, and they were able and willing to sacrifice even their own lives to be able to stand up for the gospel. And that's not what we see these days. Mm-hmm. And so, it's time to kind of pick up our own cross and fight the battle. It reminds me of one of the hobbits in that Lord of the Rings when I talk about the sleepless malice. It's always there, right? And so if we're aware of it, then we do what we can from our own perspective. I think that's kind of like what I was called. In my heart, I had the insight of calling to kind of let kind of express that.
Sure.
I noticed that when it comes to the whole, confusion of the faith and so on, and I think the way I see it, the infiltration of ideologies like, liberation theology and the like in our church. In Latin America, it was mainly through economic divisions. In the States and Canada, I see it as this whole racial thing. And we can see that it's going to result in the same chaos. And so let's pray. And I think that, lay people like yourselves and everyone that's listening that's not, minister, if you will, ordained, I think it's time for us to really take more of a leadership with all respect and everything, but we have to start with the truth.
Mm-hmm. Well, Harold, you're spot on because, and it's interesting. No coincidence. I think that you're listening on the Station of the Cross. That one of their taglines is, the gospel message, the truth with charity and clarity. And that is, I agree with you. I mean, it's time for the truth, God's truth, right? The objective truth, the real truth, not the truth according to whomever. So it's interesting that you're saying this. Do I see it in the ministry circle that I'm in, and does Jerry see it in the ministry circle that he's in? We are seeing the laity step up and do some really great things, and we are the church. So it is important we support and build up the body of Christ as best we can. So we're with you on this. And I think the more that people step into ministry, we can help to shape things in a better way, a more honest and truthful way, and living according to God's commands. Right, Jerry?
Well, I don't know exactly the percentages, but probably 99% of the church is the laity. And as Harold, you were alluding to, we need to always respect legitimate authority within the church, and those who are really holy shepherds and religious and all of that. But even Bishop Fulton Sheen, he said, who's going to save our church? He really pointed out that it was going to be the lay people, and it's up to the lay people to make sure that our clergy and religious and bishops act like who they're supposed to be. And thank God we have many good ones. Unfortunately, there are a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing all down through the centuries. So laity have to be very much involved. We got to, and Harold, we have to know our faith, get involved. We have to know our faith and be willing to stand up for it. And if necessary, even lay people have been called to die for the faith in the past.
And pray for our leaders, pray for our priests and our clergy. Very important. Harold, thank you so very much. God bless you. That was a great contribution to this discussion. Jerry, we're getting down to the end of this broadcast, but we have about 3 minutes. So let's squeeze Julie in Minnesota. We're going to go fast, Julie. And Julie's listening on Real Presence Radio. Hi, Julie. Hello, Julie.
Hello, Judy. Are you there?
Julie. Oh, okay. We tried to squeeze her in. Oh, there. I can hear her. Okay, Julie, are you there? Are you with us? You're on the air?
No, apparently not. I hear the radio, but not Julie.
I hear the radio, too.
That's too bad. But
yeah.
Well, we get some notes ahead of time on what callers want to say, and Debbie Judy was going to mention that the 40s was a decade that she wished she had been a part of because there was more patriotism and more faith at that time. And there certainly took a lot of both of those because of the state the world was in at that time.
Yeah, with the there was a lot happening, actually. If you're a history buff, if you look at what was going on in Nazi Germany and everything, I mean, you had a lot happening, a lot of things. But Julie, you talk about patriotism and faith. It's interesting if any of you history buffs out there, and if you go back into the 40s, Julie makes a good point, Jerry, because if you look at the military people that served during that time, they were very much deeply rooted in their faith. They conducted their lives like that. They had their military careers that actually demonstrated that, and their faith really did play a lot of who they were and who they continued to be after they served. So that's a good point there, because that is true. If any of you history buffs, you'll know what I'm talking about. You read about these people that served in World War I and II and Vietnam and Korean War. I mean, these men and women were incredible when they talk about their faith life.
And in the times we live in right now, call for heroes, political, cultural, social heroes, but also saints. We need saints more than anything else right now. And we know you, the Take-Two family who are raising your kids right now or influencing your grandkids. We know that you get that, you understand that. And it is just such a blessing to interact with you each and every day on this program and see the future really is bright. We know God can turn any situation around, and there's a lot of good going on in the world right now. Let us not turn a blind eye to that, Debbie. I think we really need to recognize the good things that are happening, get behind those things, and then also, work hard to root out those things that are, leading us away from God.
That's true. Absolutely. Well, tomorrow, folks, we want to get the information out there so you can make some good decisions for your kids and your grandkids. Tomorrow night, we have an amazing webinar with our guest, Adam Bly, talking about the occult and all these party games that are just kind of just run-of-the-mill party games that actually are very dangerous. They're leading people into the occult. So please join us for this webinar at standtalltoday.com and register. It's tomorrow, Jerry.
Yeah, and tomorrow on the program here, it's our monthly All About Relationships. Any relationship you would like to talk about, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, we can always hope that we come away with stronger relationships. That's why we do that show once a month here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Thanks again to Matt, Ace, and Jeff, the show team and affiliates for carrying the program. Until tomorrow, we certainly always want to wish you a beautiful and blessed day. And St. Joseph, please pray for us.
Stand Tall is now offering advanced group coaching sessions with master coaches highly trained in life skills. Visit